Well, hello everyone, and we are just excited today with another installment of Kidney Talks with the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center. I am your host, Kendrick Curry. I'm pastor of the Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church of Washington, D.C. And I have with me Dr. Joseph Keith Melanson, who is a great esteemed chief of the George Washington Transplant Institute and the esteemed co-host. And I also have with me the Mr. Paul Smith, who is a transplant recipient, and he's going to describe his patient experience, and Mr. Jafu Delane, who is a living donor, and he's going to describe his experience. Today, we have an amazing subject title, and it is I Needed a Kidney, and This is My Story. And I want to kick it off by letting you know that the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center, in conjunction with MOTEP, which is the Minority Organ Tissue Transplant and Education Program, is excited to bring you these webinars bi-weekly. And we have some great information for you, and we look forward to having another great show. So I want to turn it over to Dr. Melanson, the consummate co-host, and I would just allow him to really guide us into this discussion today as we hear from Paul and Javu.
Thank you, Reverend Curry. As always, it's a great pleasure to be with you and to be here on the broadcast, because I think that today we're going to really be able to see in person some of the things that we always talk about on this program. I'm so proud of both of these gentlemen in sharing their story, because I really believe it's going to have a huge impact out there on the population, because what you see is the face of kidney disease. Now, I want to set the stage because I often talk about the three major causes of kidney disease: high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. But it's ironic because the gentleman that you're going to meet, Mr. Smith, that's not really what caused his kidney disease. It was another major cause, which we haven't really talked about much on this broadcast, which is what we call FSGS, which is also an issue in the African American population. So, African Americans have a lot more kidney disease. We make up about 12% of the population, but we make up about 36% of the people that need transplants. And that gap between our demographics in the population versus how much kidney disease we have is why having live donors is so very important. Our other issue is we don't have enough live donors, and we don't have enough live donors coming from our own population. So what you're going to see here is an African American gentleman who gets a transplant from one of his friends, good friends, who's also African American. They both are, besides being African American, they're both ex-football players. They're big, muscular guys, kind of like me. And it's going to be important that people like this get their points across, that you can be masculine and still have kidney disease and still do the right thing as far as addressing your health problems, and you can be masculine and save a friend's life. And that's what Jafu did. And I don't want to take up all the time, because I want them to talk about their experience, because let me tell you, this is something that needs to resound throughout the community, because there's a lot of people that are sitting in the sort of situation that Mr. Smith was sitting in, but don't have the blessing of a friend, a good friend, a true friend like Jafu. So I'm going to let Mr. Paul Smith tell his story and how this kind of unfolded.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
All right. Hello, Dr. Reverend Jafu. How you guys doing today?
Fine, thank you.
In 1998, I was originally diagnosed with a kidney disease, and I still can't pronounce the words, but it was spilling protein, and I went in to get some extended life insurance, and that's when I was originally diagnosed. And so I tried, I fought it for 20 years. I mean, through the regular medicine, the herbal process, and everything. And then when COVID hit, is when I really, really got sick. I was never diagnosed with COVID, but I do believe I got COVID. And I had went to get some blood work because I'm also a recovering cancer patient, and I went to get some blood work from my doctor, and he actually called me on a holiday. I think it was Memorial Day, and told me I needed to go to the hospital because my kidneys were really shutting down then. And at that point, I went in the hospital, and I was really afraid because at that time they didn't allow anybody in the hospital to even check in with you. And I was on a COVID floor, and then I was just afraid, and was by myself. And after that, I actually went on dialysis that next day. And about a week or two later, when I got out of the hospital and started dialysis, Jafus was my friend. His son had come around. He was his son Mansour and my son Aeneas have known each other since they were 4 or 5 years old, and they became good friends and played youth football together and went to high school together and played football. And Jafu called me one day and said, "I heard you're sick. Let's get together." And at that time, he told me, "If there's some testing we got to do, I want to give you my kidney." And knowing Jafu, I knew he was serious, but I also knew the situation that he had 5 kids, and I was hesitant because of that situation. I know all of his kids, but the situation was, he called me again, and he said, "I'm serious about this. I want to give you a kidney. When are we going to start the testing process?" But I was having so much trouble in dialysis. I really wanted to get my body right to get used to that. And so it went on for a few months just to get my body right, used to dialysis, because I was blacking out, cramping up, and almost on a daily basis. And then I went to a couple of different hospitals, and they just were not receptive to it. I mean, they were taking too long, and I got introduced to George Washington. I filled out some paperwork to George Washington, and from that moment, I think when I filled out the paperwork, within a week, I got a call and I was on a call with one of the doctors. We did set up a conference call, and then that's when I told Jafu. I reached back out to Jafu. I said, "Jafu, they want to do this, and I want to do it." And him and I had met, and I always knew he was serious, but I wanted to make sure that, his wife, I know his wife and all that everybody was on board. And, having a friend like this is, people, let me just say, normally every day, people walking the streets don't do something like this. I mean, I have actually a part of his body in my body, which is just, and I'm forever grateful for that. Not because we're friends or anything, because he wanted to do it. He wasn't coerced to do it or pushed to do it. He really wanted to do it. He pushed to get the test done so we can get this thing And actually, I was kind of going slow because I was hesitant because he's a friend of mine, and I just didn't want something bad to happen to him. And then when I found out that if something was to ever happen to his one kidney, he would be able to get a kidney real fast. That gave me the confidence. But once I met Dr. Malachi, I was, to me, it was confirmation from God. First, and let me say this: I've never in my life, and I've had a lot of surgeries, from knee to ankles to arms, sports surgeries. I've never had a black doctor operate on me. And that was really important to me. And I remember after I met, I went and told my wife, I have a black doctor working on me. And what made it so special, he's from Lafayette, Louisiana, and he knew of a friend of mine who I know that's a real good friend of mine who used to play for the Utah Jazz. And they knew each other from Lafayette. And I look at things, and it's a book out called It's Not by Chance. And this was not by chance with all these things tying together. If it's really meant to be, God will let you know. And that's how I said, let's do this. So we went through all the testing, and I was worried about that I would be, wanted to make sure that Jafu and I matched. And there was never any really issues of not matching. And that was another sign that it's not by chance. This was meant to be. And none of us know why things happen, why things are meant to be, but we have to follow those leads. And the surgery, when I went in for the surgery, again, I was nervous in the morning, but when I got in there, Jafu was already there. And he was his normal, just like his son Mansour, smiling, kind of joking in the room. And his wife was there, and then the doctor come in. And I got comfortable with that. But George Washington Hospital, I want to say, is amazing. After I had surgery, the doctor come in, but a couple of days later, he came in with, I don't know, it had to be 8 people in my room. And I'm saying, am I this important? And I actually remember telling all the nurses, and not just the nurses, the cleaning staff and the people taking the blood, that if it wasn't a hospital, I would want to move in George Washington. The way they treated me, it was just special. It was special. So I moved all of my records. All of my doctors now are working out of George Washington. Because of the treatment they got. And it's a 30 to 40, depending on traffic, drive for me, but I would rather go there than anywhere else now. And that's, I guess, my story.
Definitely, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing. And it would be just amazing to hear about your friendship and kinship. And I would love for Jafu now to just share his story and what led him to do what he did, to be such an amazing friend.
Yes, sir. Hey, so thank you for this opportunity. I was telling Paul when we first agreed to this that I wanted to keep it low key. I didn't want anyone knowing this is our special moment, so let's just keep it special. But obviously, he sort of, explained the fact that how this can help, especially our community. And really, what sort of made me even consider it was what did happen within my family with kidneys and dialysis and that experience of feeling alone. So the backstory on me was that prior to even donating the kidney to Paul, I have an aunt whose husband had kidney failure, and she was a living donor that I knew very well. One of my favorite aunts, basically. And what I mean by favorite, just a good person all the way around. It was never publicized about anything she sort of did, but we all sort of knew she went through that. Um, and then also my sister, currently 2018, she actually passed away and was on dialysis. So I had a good understanding of how this disease can take you out quickly and really just change your everyday living. And so when Paul sort of shared me his story, even his other scare that we had, his medical concern, I couldn't really do anything with that. That was something that we just sort of prayed on, and just hopefully you can get better. And sure enough, he did get better and he came through it. But when I heard about the kidney, it was something that I knew I could do. Right, I can help in this cause. So when Paul sort of came to me, knowing to me it was more of a sensitive time issue, where I said, hey, if this is something that we need to do, Paul, I'm willing to help you, because in my eyes, my story with Paul is that I seen so many things that Paul did for our little circle, our community. We coached youth football, like he was saying, but just the amount of hours that this guy put in with all kinds of kids, all kind of backgrounds, all of the economical class, from the wealthy whose parents played pro ball to the kid who just, didn't even have food at home. Truckloads of kids, endless amount of times that he has spent. So to me, that this was a pillar of our community. So I could not allow, if I could help it, I was not going to allow us to lose this pillar of a man in our community. So when he did tell me that, I pulled all of that research. First person I did call, even before talking to my wife, was my aunt, who actually donated her kidney. And she explained what I was going to anticipate, what I should expect, going in and after. None of those seemed to scare me in any kind of way. But basically, just the uncertainty of it, of the unknown, was a little bit different for me, mainly because, like Paul, I had no surgeries. I'd never been under the knife, never been cut before, nothing like that. So for me, it was a lot of mental reflection, and for if I had to compromise whatever energy or a few scars here and there to keep somebody like Paul in my mind here in this. Again, I know we don't control anybody's time, but we can sort of help the quality of the life. So for me, I was saying, hey, we got to do this, Paul. I don't want us to waste time on this, and the body constantly deteriorates. So let's get it done. So I knew he had, I know he was just going to say, okay, let's get it done. He was reflecting, and you heard everything that he was considering, the amount of kids I had, and stuff like that. But after talking to my wife and my aunt, we basically said, no, I mean, let's do this. Let's get it done. So it actually helped me a lot, because I'm in pretty good shape. But it just sort of made me be a little bit more conscious about what and how I treated my body. So that was a really good thing. And the one thing that I think was really beneficial for me is that I feel like I'm in good shape. Therefore, I don't do my regular checkups. I don't do any of that stuff. So then by going through that process, I got a thorough checkup. And it was great, because it was something I probably wouldn't have even done for myself typically. So it was a small benefit just in that, to know that I did have that good bill of health. And so it was a win-win. So just the motivation to get it done sort of quickly for Paul was crucial, because I wanted this to be, something in the past, and we're doing what we're doing now, sharing beautiful podcasts, smiling, and enjoying each other's presence here, today.
Thank you so much, Jafu, for just your being willing to give, right? So there's so much taking in the world now, but you've given another brother that you obviously care and have great respect for and love, and you've given him life, right? And so I just applaud you. Even in the chat, we have folk that are saying this is inspirational as well as informative, and how wonderful this is. And may God continue to bless you both. And
Thank you.
I just really want Dr. Melanson to jump in here And let's talk about these dynamics. You know, Paul needing a kidney and Jafu giving a kidney and the things behind it, because there are some questions that are already in the chat that say, you know, what does it take to get on the transplant list? And do I need a donor? Or does it have to be a match for me? I've heard of these daisy chain plants that match maybe 8 to 10 people. So there are a lot of questions around what between Paul and Jafu happened that folk would like to answer. So Dr. Milan, can you just begin to open up this conversation?
Yes, yes, Reverend Curry. Those are great questions, and I'm going to start. I'm going to start a little bit on the spiritual side, since you're a man of the cloth, because look at what had to occur here. So first of all, somebody comes forward to be a donor for you. They need to match, right?
Yeah.
So these two gentlemen match. Now, Mr. Paul is a big guy. I mean, so the bigger you are, in stature, the bigger the kidney you need, right?
Right.
So I tell people, you make a fist, that's the size of your kidney. So, men can get female kidneys, women can get male kidneys, and, it's all okay. But as you get really large, and like I said, Mr. Paul's a big guy, ex-football player, then what you really need is a big person to donate to you, a muscular person, a person who's also going to have a big kidney. Well, you're looking at Jafu, another big guy. So not only did he get someone that matched him, he got someone that was almost his same size, same kidney size. And that was another thing that was very miraculous about the procedure. And then, and I tell the story all the time. I tell people, look, I've been doing transplant for a long time. People say things, right? They will say things like, if I ever have a family member that needs a kidney, I would donate it. Or if I had a friend, a good friend, maybe I might donate a kidney to them. But the truth of the matter is that the types of people that step up and do what Jafu did are rare, right? Most of us are not that type of a person. And I can tell you, I met this gentleman and his beautiful wife, and they came in, and just like Paul said, this guy was determined to do this. There was never any gray area. It was, I want to find out about my health, make sure I'm okay, and I want to donate to my friend. And his wife was the typical kind of wife that in that situation, she wanted to make sure her husband was going to be okay. Right. But they were beautiful people from the beginning, and you could see it. And that's again, in the spiritual realm, we had some really great individuals. And luckily in the field of work that I work in, I meet people like this. But like I said, it was particularly inspirational because of the issue that we have in the African American community. And these are two African American men, because we have lots of men that need transplants, and oftentimes it's their sisters, it's their wives that's stepping forward. Here we had a male stepping forward. And that's why I think it's so important that we emphasize this, because we need more of this to occur in our community. And there are people out there, that's why it's so important to give people information, because information is power. And when people have information, they can understand, hey, just like Jafu, he came in and he had an operation and, was in the hospital a very short period of time, is back to normal health, can do the things he was doing before. He's restored health to Mr. Smith. And as a result of this operation, this does not just simply mean that Mr. Smith doesn't have to be on dialysis. What Jafu gave Paul is life. He gave him years and years, decades of life, because the life expectancy with a successful transplant is much longer than life expectancy on dialysis. So Mr. Smith gets to have pretty much a normal life expectancy. Jafu also continues to have a normal life expectancy. So what he gave him was life. What he gave him is the ability to see his son and the rest of his children that are all athletes, graduate from college and get married and have kids. That's decades of life. And that's why, it can even get emotional when you start to think about, you're a friend, but what he gave this man is the best Christmas present he ever could get in a lifetime. Right. So yeah, I love my job because I get to interact with people like this. And, and when I talk to them, both of them from the beginning, and Jafu's right. He wanted to kind of keep things quiet. And, we had to kind of talk to him and say, I understand you don't want any limelight. You weren't doing that for any other ulterior motives. You were doing this because you care for your friend. However, I told him, and Paul told him as well, it's important for your story to get out there because people need to see this, right? We need to understand as a community, this is important because we got a lot of people that are in Mr. Smith's situation, unfortunately, right? And so we want people to have better lifestyles. Both of these guys tend to be pretty healthy, even though Mr. Smith has gone through these issues, they work out, they try to eat right, they try to do the right things in their health, and they pass that on to their kids. But we need the community to understand that all of this, from early in the journey when you can turn things around, Mr. Smith found out about his kidney disease years before and was trying to do things to mitigate against going on dialysis. But eventually, the die was cast. He was going to head down that path at some point. But what we want people to understand is you can change your lifestyle and possibly not have kidney disease later in life. But if you are in that situation, it shouldn't be the end of the road. Dialysis shouldn't be the only alternative for you. And the only way that that's going to happen is if people like Jafu step up and do what he did and say, you know what, if I'm healthy, if everything is going to be okay with my health, then I want to try to impact positively the health of someone else. And like I said, from the very first time I met both of these gentlemen, I knew they were both special. Jafu talked about what Mr. Paul means in the community. He's a special guy. He's an altruistic kind of guy. And again, I'll let you get into this, Reverend Curry, but there's something about in our faith about what you sow, you reap, right? And that's what this gentleman is doing. He reaped what he sowed into the community. I'll let you go with that, Reverend Curry.
You always trying to be a preacher, you're always trying to preach, but there is a reaping and sowing here, and there's also a synergistic effect that really has shown that life is given, and that all of this, the sum of the parts is much greater, much greater than we could ever begin to imagine. I do want to ask Jafu this, and Paul, you can comment as well. What type of shape were you in? What type of physical shape were you in? Because somebody is asking, Robert Goodman is asking, do you have to be in a certain kind of shape to be a recipient? What type of shape were you in, Jafu?
I was in decent shape. I mean, just basic, watching what I ate, jog periodically, but nothing exceptional. I'm not a marathon runner, but basically just living sort of a clean life, not trying to put too many poisons in the body and stuff like that. So, but as far as physically in shape, again, I don't have a lot of time. I got 5 kids, so I don't have a lot of time to be running around by myself. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. But, average good shape. I do run. I do jog constantly and just try to build a sweat. But again, just watching what I eat more than anything.
Well, I just have to speak up, Reverend Curry. Let me first say, Jafu's not in normal shape. I mean, this guy. I mean, he has a certain concept of what is normal. this guy is.
So recalibrate us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Okay.
this gentleman was in phenomenal shape. I mean, solid muscle. Works out all the time. So he was not in normal shape. But I will say that people who are in normal shape can be donors. You don't have to be like Jafu, but but that brother is not in normal shape. He's a little twisted when he's thinking about himself as normal. Because if everybody was in Jafu shape, we wouldn't need to do transplants because people wouldn't have these problems. He eats a very healthy diet. He watches what he eats. He's very passionate about trying to keep himself in pretty good shape. He works out, and like I said, definitely his concept of normal is not quite what a general concept of typical Americans normal is.
Okay.
Well,
Well put.
well, I take it too that Paul, you both of you all are football players, and I'm sure you lead active lives and still probably work out and at least in better shape than Dr. Milan and myself. So I think this is a life-giving story. It is about unusual gifts that we can give. And if there's one thing, Paul, you could say, to the audience about the gift of life you've been given from Jafu, what would it be?
I guess the one thing I can say is I have a normal life now. I mean, before then, when I went on dialysis, there was times when, I even told my wife once, I'm not going to go back to dialysis. It was that hard.
Oh, wow.
I know I had to go back because I got 3 kids, but I had told her one night it was just so hard. But then the morning after my surgery, Dr. Malakan came in. I was still in the ICU room, and he wanted to check my levels and things. And he looked at me and said, "Your days of dialysis are over with."
Wow.
And that was the happiest moment I had. But what I wanted to do was make sure I could reach out to Jafu at that time because he was checking on me. So it was a day later that I was able to get up to the same floor he was on. But when I got into the floor, he was a few hours later, he was checking out. But I wanted to make sure I saw him before he left the hospital. But that was a normal life. I mean, where, I couldn't travel because I had to be on dialysis, 3 times a week. And it was 4.5 hours, and my body was just so hard. Because, I didn't work for a year and a half. I mean, I worked a little bit on the computer. I mean, I'm blessed because my wife and I, we own our own construction company, but not being able to go into the office because dialysis was so hard. The one good thing I had, though, I think, is my daughters were gone, but I had 3 high school football players in my house living with us. And actually, Jafu's son was one of them. So I could always joke around with those guys, and that kept me going. But there was times when I would cramp up so bad, I had all 3 of them rubbing my legs and upstairs rubbing my legs, but that kept me going with those 3 guys. So,
wow.
yeah.
What a story. What a story. This is really a story of amazing grace. The grace that God has allowed you to experience and getting the kidney and having a new lease on life, and the grace, the sacrificial giving of Jafu that would allow him to even want to do this. Jafu, beyond just your love for Paul and what have you, what would you say would be the deepest motivation for you to give in such a way?
I guess really just from the spiritual aspect, like I said, I felt fortunate and blessed to even know somebody like Paul, like Doctor was saying, that, that you even want to give this, so I felt entitled in a way where, spiritually, this is a call that came to me, So that unconditional, not unconditional happiness, but just a genuine love, and I feel it every day when I'm just sort of dealing with myself. You know, the purpose is a little bit bigger now. I don't know if I can really, I just feel like I answered something that could have talked myself out easily, and it was something literally, like I said, internally, you wouldn't even know I had done something like this, right? So just to know that I have and I'm in good shape, and it was like the worry was put to the side early, even before I had the surgery. So just an internal contentment and peace has definitely taken over, my inner being. So I don't know if that's something that people are seeking, but you do feel it. I mean, you do feel what Paul is saying. You feel it without having to say it again. It's just that you're serving a bigger purpose, and it was a beautiful thing. Like I said, just an opportunity to even do it.
I think this is just amazing. Dr. Melanson, what would you say that we should tell the viewers with regard to the importance of living donation?
Yeah, thanks, Reverend Curry. Well, again, I think Jafu just summed it up quite well. I have interacted with so many donors throughout my life, and all of them, their stories echo Jafu's story, which is they talk about how their own lives have been transformed by giving this gift. I remember, just to give you one story, I had a lady who wanted to donate a kidney to her mom, and her mom would not allow her to donate to her. And this was the daughter, and she kept trying to donate to her mom throughout the years, and her mom just said no and no, and eventually her mom dies. And this lady she's just crushed because she knew that her mom needed a kidney transplant. She had been on dialysis, and her health was just spiraling downward. And after her mom died, she comes to me, and she wound up donating a kidney to a stranger, right? Because she had that desire inside of her, and it was crushing to her soul to know that her mom never got that gift. Later, after she donates her kidney to someone else and sees what happened in that person's life, her whole life was transformed. She had been, I don't want to put it to the point of depression, but her soul, her spirit wasn't where it needed to be until she had given that gift. Now, you say I like to preach sometimes, Reverend Curry, but we had Pentecost Sunday just recently. And those
I
men,
see.
yeah. And those men, they were cowering, they were hiding out. They didn't have courage. They were afraid that they were going to meet the fate of their leader. But something happened, and they went out and they became something very different. And I think when I look at Jafu and so many of the other donors I've dealt with, that's what I see. I see people that their inner spirit is uplifted, and it makes them better, makes them healthier. I know you know this, Reverend Curry, but we've done numerous studies, and we look at people that pray, people that go to church regularly, people that are spiritual, meditate, and their health is better than the general public. So there's something about this, and I think that's what you feel. Like I said, I felt this with these two men from the first time I met them, which is why it's so important for them, I believe, to be out there and talking about their experience. Going back to Jafu and his normal health, I think he was doing one-handed push-ups the day after his surgery. I think I remember walking in and he was doing one-handed push-ups.
One-handed push-ups the day after.
The day after, yeah. That's the kind of normal health this man had.
I see. I see. This is so powerful. The story is so amazing that this is something that folk need to hear over and over and over again. It's encouraging our people. It's encouraging, to, as Dr. Melanson has already said, Black men when one black man gives to another, with all of the senseless violence that we're seeing in the community right now. We have an example right on our screen on blackdoctors.org that we can see one man, black man, giving to another. That is tremendous. And I just look forward to more story from Jafu and Paul. Have you all ever thought about writing a story? I know, Jafu, you want to keep it hidden, but the story is out now.
It's out.
Have y'all thought about writing a book about this?
Again, I got kids. So the thing is, even what Paul was saying with one of my sons who was living with Paul going to high school, because of the area where the distance to get to the school. So Paul lived closer to the school, so it sort of worked out nicely. And my son at that time, when we were going through all of our testing, the kids being kids, they didn't ask one question. You know what I mean? They just assumed everything was going to be all right. So even after the surgery, I got a follow up from the kids, how did it go kind of deal. So then I was a little bit troubled because I didn't get enough of the kind of proper concern I felt was necessary from my kids, right? But my kid was like, listen, I know you guys are going to be good. You guys, and all that to say that they were even confident, that it was going to be a good outcome. And it was just sort of nice because, like he was just saying earlier, as far as African Americans, how we just don't even have that genuine love for complete just because anymore. Just because Paul, who he is, the kids sort of knew that I was going to step up. And I just thought that was just a great moment, even for my kids to see, just for them to see us united like that had no gain. It was no gain. He wasn't doing it for this and I wasn't doing it for that. It was just who Paul was and how he carried himself. And without writing a book, that story was told within my family and sort of, again, sort of it's legendary even within the household, in my household.
Wow. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say, and I don't discourage anybody from going anywhere, because wherever you can get your kidney transplant, please go get it. But I do want to say this, because Dr. Milan and George Washington Hospital, if you can get it there, that's where you need to go get it, because they make you feel, I don't know, just special, just special. Even when I go to the doctor now, it's just a different feeling. And I have talked to other hospitals through this process. And again, I don't want to discourage anybody from getting a kidney transplant from anywhere, but the reception just wasn't there from the other places that they were from him.
Got it. That's powerful. Dr. Milan's son, so that our audience would know, we know that the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center is just amazing. Tell us how we can get on that transplant list and how you can get involved with the center to get this work done. Folk need to have kidney tests. They may even need a transplant. Tell them how to get involved.
Yeah. So thanks, Reverend Curry, and thanks, Paul, for those beautiful words. Because what we strive to do is to make everyone feel like they're part of the family. And when I hear those stories, it makes me proud of my team here. You, Reverend Curry, know through the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center, we do a lot of stuff in the community just to try to find out if people have kidney disease or have precursors to kidney disease. So, we go out through the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center, and I'll have Jennifer needs to put in the website for the Ron and Joy Paul, as well as the GW Transplant Institute, because we're not just interested in people that need transplants, but we're also interested in trying to get people to understand what makes them at risk. And the one thing I always want to say is everyone needs to go out to CVS or whatever drugstore and just buy a blood pressure machine. You can buy them for like $20, and you should check your blood pressure. It's a very simple thing to do, and it's one of the ways to find out if you're at risk for kidney disease. That top number needs to be below 140, and the bottom number needs to be below 80. And if they're not in that range, then you have high blood pressure, and that needs to be dealt with. As far as getting on the kidney transplant list, really you can self-refer. So, most people that need a kidney transplant, their doctor can send them to our office, but you could self-refer. And, our number is the area code 202-715-4225. But, if you get to the point where you need to be transplanted, it's very important that you go and see a medical professional. And you don't just think that dialysis is your only option. Dialysis is great because it keeps people alive, but it's not your only option. Paul Smith was basically saying of how when you're going through these sorts of things like kidney failure and dialysis, it can be really depressing. And people go through a lot of psychiatric sort of things when they are confronted with these huge changes in their health. And so that's another part of what needs to be uplifted, right? People need to understand there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not, you can get through this. And that's what's so beautiful. Reverend Curry, you mentioned how in the community, we see so many sad stories of violence, of black on black crime. It's just absolutely horrible. And this is the opposite. And
Yes.
hopefully, particularly since these men are both coaches and they have sons that are great athletes, and that this resonates as well, because doing for others, that's the ultimate way to get, even for yourself, to make yourself feel better, right? And I think that our society today teaches people to be so selfish instead of selfless, right? And what type of car you drive, or how big your house is, or what, on and on. Now with the athletes, they're gonna be millionaires in college. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with money, but the problem is we need to diminish this concept that you're going to be better by the more stuff you have, and start to teach these young people that no. You know what really makes you better? What this man did. I mean, this guy, he's already a big muscular guy, but Jafu is a giant in my eyes because of what he did. He's a giant in his kids' eyes, and his wife, and his family, and what he did for this man. And that will never be forgotten. And that's why it's such an honor for me to interact with people like this, because every single time I see someone that comes forward in order to save the life of another, I am really meeting a hero. And that's what you are, Jafu, and that's what you are, Paul. Because here's the thing: what Paul had to do is he had to understand, I've got a problem, and I've got to deal with my problem. It's not okay for me to be passive and just let whatever happens. This man had to be proactive and change the course of his life. So I see recipients that seek out better. That's why he talked about the way he was treated, because he was seeking good help and wasn't getting it in the beginning. And many of us are passive, and we just take whatever is given to us. And that's also important. It's important to seek out. If the answers you're getting are not the right answers, or they don't feel like you don't feel like you're getting the right answers, you need to seek out a second or third opinion. But you need to be proactive. This is a very smart guy who was very proactive about his health, and that's why this happened for him.
Yes. Can I just echo something that you just said? And I think you hit it on the head when you just said what you said. But for Paul and I to be comfortable enough to talk to each other like we do. You know what I mean? Real concern, because I think a lot of times we don't even share that intimate, things are wrong or something like that. But the simple fact that Paul and I had that kind of relationship, regardless of everything that's going on, we still ended our conversations with, how are you? How are you doing? And for him to be able to feel comfortable enough to share that with me, therefore things get rolling. So I think even as within our own community, we may not have that same brotherly concern for each other, which is really the essence of why all this happened, because of Paul and I's relationship, comfortable enough to share these things. So
Well, thank you for sharing that. Both of you are indeed heroes, heroes in giving, heroes in telling the story, heroes in just letting a public know that, we are not everything that the news often portrays us as. This is a prime example of how we've been victorious among Black men in particular, and that we will have opportunity to tell this story over and over and over again. I hope that future generations will be able to take from your example, and that our kids will become more selfless than selfish. And so I am indeed grateful. This has been an excellent program. This ought to go in, be great in the archives. And I am just hoping that more and more people watch this very show, because this is an amazing kidney talk. Because Paul said, I needed a kidney and told this story, and Jafu answered. And Dr. Melanson did the transplant. You have it all right here. So I'm just excited, and I want to thank everyone for viewing this today at blackdoctors.org and the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center, MOTEP. We miss Dr. Clive Callender, who is normally with us. And I'm Kendrick Curry, pastor, Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church in Washington, D.C. And we are concerned about your health, because we need healthy believers that can take our communities forward. So thank you so very much. We look forward to a transforming activity in the future with the Ron and Joy Paul Kidney Center and these kidney talks. Take